Natali, thank you so much for doing this. Great to meet you. Big fan of your work. And, I'm just so excited. Your first time on here today, I get to talk to you. So thanks.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for the invitation.
We had a little bit of technical difficulties we were able to work through. And, as you were saying offline, in today's world, you have some technical challenges with the internet. You don't know. And I was referencing the Men in Black because my conversation, ever since Paul Craig Roberts said that to me last week, it's just in my head about the Men in Black. And you don't know, you wonder, maybe the Men in Black are pulling some cables today and not letting my internet work for me.
Oh, we wonder that all the time. And in fact, during the 10-day war we had with Iran, we had live streams that we did, sort of emergency, live streams to try and figure out what the heck was going on when President Trump promised no new wars and then had one within 6 months of his administration. And our live stream cut out about an hour and a half into it. And we thought, oh my God, we've really run afoul of the deep state now. And then we went out front, and we were getting a retaining wall put in, and one of the workers was holding the line like, oh, what'd I do? So that was at least comforting that it was not then, but you never know when,
Well, and it's crazy to me that was already a month ago that all that happened. And I was actually back. I'm from Northeast Ohio, and I was back there that Saturday when it accelerated. And I got a lot of heat. I put something on my personal Facebook, and people were just pushing back on me for it because I don't want wars. Like I didn't vote for this.
What's wrong with you? Yeah.
People, they were attacking me.
Loyalist.
They were attacking me like crazy. Like I could, and I thought I'd get a little bit of heat, but I mean, I had boomers that were just like, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know. This had to be done. And I'm like, okay, boomers. I'm not the smartest guy in the room. Like I don't claim to be this smart guy, but I've been hearing about this Iran nuclear bomb for 20 years. Probably more than that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's funny that you noticed that it was just boomers because it seems like other generations will not be sold this war. And I wonder why it is. Is it because we have come up with the internet and we've been able to unravel too many lies? Whereas if you talk to my father, he has some kind of idea. My dad's 70. That probably Afghanistan was not a great idea, but he doesn't know the details. Same with, the Iraq war. He doesn't know that the babies in incubators was cooked up by a PR firm. He doesn't understand these things. And so he might be slower to refute what might be out there. Him and his wife, were telling me how much Putin is a madman. He needs to be stopped kind of stuff. And I was like, where did you get that? Right. So he doesn't know how to unwind those things. But when I sit him down and I tell him, he's willing to say, oh, okay. But they're just not used to narrative breaking. It's not their generation. And unfortunately, their generation is the one who cooked up so many lies on behalf of them. And so I feel, badly. But I've been thinking about this a lot. It's harder and harder to sell us lies because of the internet. That's why they want so much control over it. And so, that's encouraging, but we're watching people in Gaza starve right before our very eyes. Even though we know it, we can't change it. So I don't know exactly where we find ourselves at this precipice in humanity.
At least so your dad is willing to listen to you, because you have some boomers that are just, and this is why I think the disconnect is so great between that older generation. I mean, I'm 47, so my generation, and then the younger generation. Like, I get why the younger people don't even want to listen to a lot of the people in their 70s, because a lot of them, they're not even receptive to any type of feedback or just be objective. And I don't know. I think about this too, and I think to myself, and you tell me what your thoughts are. Because it was the good guys, bad guys, right? The good guys, bad guys in the 80s, 90s, 2000. Mm-hmm. And, you had Fox News. You didn't have the evolution of the digital world that we have today. I'm in that in-between stage, right? Because I didn't have an iPhone when I was, I'm part of the last generation, I think, of kids that played outside. And then the pager and, the cell phone with Snake
Yep.
Logic and evolution of the iPhone and the apps. But they didn't have that. So, to come to terms with the fact that, you've been lied to for so long, I don't know if they just can't come to grips with it, or, like this whole good guys, bad guys narrative. Like, I don't see that. This episode is brought to you by McIlvaney Financial Group. Their advisors bring a depth of knowledge and experience that allow them to serve their clientele with care, ensuring their financial needs are met now and in the future. Personally, I'm not saying cash is worthless, but you can see what's happening. It's worth less every year. Gold is the opposite. Click on the promo link in the show notes or go to www.mcilvaney.com/coffeeandamike.
Right. I don't know. I'm only speaking on behalf of my own parents, right? And I'm 46, so we're in the same generation. Snake on the iPhone, pagers. I think the iPhone
you got a
came
beef.
out
You
when
had to
we were
get
28.
You got paged and you had to get off the freeway and find a payphone. So
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly. You had codes from your high school boyfriend. This means this or whatever. Absolutely. And so I think, what were we, 28? When the iPhone came out, and yeah, that was it was a game changer. I was pregnant with my first son, my first baby, when I was at the announcement of the iPad, 5 months pregnant with him, and Steve Jobs, announced this, and I thought, this baby will never know a world without this, and he hasn't. He's about to turn 15. So, yeah, but I don't know. I think my parents are receptive to narrative breaking because the news doesn't make sense to them anymore like it once did. They can't see, I think maybe Putin was the last easy target that they will have. Now you see the head of Syria was ISIS. How can we make bad guys anymore? We did that. I mean, it's the same story with Saddam Hussein, was once an ally, then a bad guy, right? And so I think they're kind of, I don't know, but will it be any better when they're gone and then we are the boomers? I don't know. I can't predict that kind of thing, but you do watch the demographic shift, and you see this. Well, I think what's interesting is that the right, now I consider myself an independent, but I am more comfortable discussing politics with the right than the left, because the left has become so extremist. Whereas I was a lefty, as Ronald Reagan says, I didn't leave the Democratic Party, they left me. They have continued to go further and further to the extreme, where they are completely enabling perverts. And, as a mother, that's the one thing where I was like, I'm done with you guys. I can't have this. They want to take your children if you are not a full perverted extremist. And I just can't be a part of that any longer. And then leading the United States into the war in Ukraine based on a lie. Those were the things that really started to crumble my allegiance to the left, which makes me further aligned on the right, like I never thought I would be. But during the Biden years, the right pointed out the blind allegiance to President Biden of the left. And that was it was a valid talking point. Why don't you come after this guy? Kamala Harris for being an idiot, Joe Biden for being in cognitive decline, the Democratic Party elitists for cooing Joe Biden when he had every right to that nomination. He was primaried, right? And so the left would not speak out against corruption, border wars, all of that stuff, when it was clear that that should have been done. Russiagate, all of those things, they just refused. Now we have President Trump doing things that he promised he would not do on the right, and the people who refuse to criticize him are the same, are committing the same crimes as those on the left did. But I see more and more people who have considered themselves aligned on the right, and I hate these labels, but they're used to divide us, so let's use them in our nomenclature right now. I do see people who find themselves comfortable on the right who are willing to say, this is not what we voted for. We did not want a war with Iran. We absolutely did not want to continue. You promised us you could end the war in Ukraine. 6 months in, that hasn't happened. And in terms of Israel, President Trump was clear that he would continue to support Israel. So at least that's not a broken campaign promise. It's just a deep betrayal, I think, of the American people to continue to do this and make us unwitting participants in starving civilians right now. I don't know what to do with, because we didn't have a vote. Kamala Harris would have done the same thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think no matter who would have been put in office, who would have been in office, Israel would have got the same amount of weapons support. I don't think that would have changed. But also, what I find interesting about that is we talk about the Middle East here, is there's an Overton window now where people are criticizing Israel. 2 years ago, that would have been unthinkable for you and I to even talk about this.
Yes. Well, the term anti-Semitism has been deflated in the same way Russian apologist or Putin lover, or what are some of the other things that we've been called? I don't know. Those kind of things, they really upset me when they started to be flung at my husband and I for telling the truth about the corruption inside the Ukrainian government and the Ukrainian army. And so, yeah, we got a lot of like they're Putin lovers, apologists, that kind of thing. And it was upsetting the same way if we just read the COVID clinical trials from Pfizer, we were called anti-vaxxers. The same way if we looked at the science of transgender medicine, I was called a TERF. Now those things, they hold no weight anymore, which is sad because anti-Semitism is a real thing, but now that it's weaponized to shut down dissent, it has been completely deflated. And so it doesn't matter anymore if you sling that term, and it's been absolutely bastardized.
Well, I didn't listen to the whole thing, but Michael Knowles was criticizing the church in Gaza that got bombed, and I'm like, Michael Knowles at Daily Wire? Like, of all... Mm-hmm. The fact that somebody within Daily Wire is even questioning that, I'm like, geez, man, the tides have really turned with the media.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the right had a legitimate critique of the left for their blind faith, what they call blue MAGA, and they have to prove now, in order to keep power in the electorate, that they don't do that, and that you can say, and again, I'm not aligned with either side, but whoever decides not to criticize their own party are the ones who should be voted out. We cannot have blind allegiance right now. We can't afford it.
How difficult is it for you and your husband on Redacted to because you're seeing, you guys, your show is very objective with everything. But you're seeing, like, on the right in the beginning where it was, I mean, it's kind of moving that direction now. But 2 years ago, I didn't hear anybody on that side talking about Israel. Russia, Ukraine, yeah, but that was different than the Middle East. I don't really know how, because the United States, again, was supplying weapons in another war. But for whatever reason, it's different in the Middle East than it is in Russia, Ukraine. How hard is it, I mean, knowing that the heat and the wrath that you guys have faced, to be objective like that?
I don't quite understand the question. Like, I mean, we're up against the algorithm will suppress anything that we do around Israel. And we can see that in our numbers. Either people are just really not interested in the war in Israel, and I find that hard to believe. And that's why those pieces don't do as well as the ones in Ukraine do. But we had this was replicated, let's say 3 years ago, when the war in Ukraine was the hot topic. Now it's kind of, B-list celebrity, unfortunately, because people are still dying. Those pieces were more suppressed before. And now the algorithm chooses, and we are up against it. And you can see it if you go to our channel, which ones perform and which ones, have the lesser views. And I take responsibility for that. Like, we just have to try harder. We have to work harder because because of this topic. But I don't mean to blame. I really don't mean to blame. And it could very well be that people just don't want to talk about Israel, but I don't think that's the case. I do think that those pieces are suppressed, and it's tough. But And it's scary. I'm scared all the time because Israel is a much more sophisticated army. It's a much more sophisticated digital army than Ukraine had, and Ukraine has a lot, and it's terrifying. But what is the alternative? What do we do otherwise? You know, like I used to work for the Today Show. Am I going to just, go talk about polka dots when I know that this is the world that I have to leave my children? So yeah, it's tough. It's tough. And I think that, a lot of our content tends to be, we consider ourselves the largest anti-war show on YouTube. And if there are no wars, we will have to work harder and do something else. And we will gladly do that, right? But there's work to be done right now. And there has to be these voices because we didn't exist in the Iraq War. Either, in the 1 or 2, there was no dissenting voices that were platformed on cable news. Now people can just say, screw it to cable news and go to independent voices. We have to be what was lacking when the government had the ability to sell wars.
Yeah, and I don't think I didn't word it correctly, and you answered it. But what I meant to say was in terms of being objective and talking about these issues, knowing that you could get suppressed, knowing that you could get shadow banned, or even have your channel just killed with the YouTube gods. You still are moving forward, and you guys have not shied away from talking about all these things.
Yes, but there are bigger voices than us who do this. Candace Owens, has no filter about it and still continues to be platformed, thankfully. Tucker Carlson. And so it's maybe, it sounds like a coward to say this, but it's comforting to not be on the vanguard because they have a bigger audience and they can do it. But we do very much study the rules of YouTube, which are a moving target because they change it. It was, early in the war with Ukraine, you could not say that the Ukrainian army, the SBU, was full of, and I won't say it because I don't want to put your channel at risk.
Can you spell the word? Can you spell? Is it, before you answer that, isn't it funny?
It rhymes with Yahtzee, that they didn't have, that they didn't play Yahtzee in the Ukrainian army.
Can I share? Before you continue? Go ahead. Before you continue, can I just share a little? Because I started my YouTube channel. I wasn't going to do YouTube, and a friend of mine encouraged me because I was only doing Rumble, and a friend of mine's like, Rumble sucks. You got to do YouTube. I go, yeah, but I'm going to get banned. Like, I don't even see the point. So I put 2 episodes up. The second episode was a scientist, my friend Jessica Rose, and we were talking about vaccines, and I'd already gotten a warning within a week. The second one, I got a strike. That same week, I had Martin Kulldorff and Christina Parks, all medical, all talking about vaccines. Those 2 made it through fine. She gets pulled, right? And I just laugh because, going back to what you're talking about right now, you can't say that word. It reminds me when I was a kid and I used to watch movies on regular TV, and they had to either silent the swearing or they would do this lousy voiceover. And we're not even using profanity or anything right now, but you can't say specific words or you get, taken down. This is the world we're in. Right. It's so funny.
Well, I mean, I do very much like Rumble, but you want to go where an audience is, and we have actually a bigger live stream on Rumble most days than we do on YouTube. But then as we cut pieces up and serve them as individual segments, they do better on YouTube than Rumble. And so, we just want our platform to raise important conversations and topics. We want to break down government narratives. That's our main goal. It doesn't matter if it's a lie. If the government were telling the truth, we'll do something else. We'll go do something else. That's why we have this platform. That's why we do this work. But we have to constantly watch the rules of YouTube, which are a moving target. The rules around covering the vaccine changed completely 180. It used to be that you couldn't say that, and I'm going to talk around it again, that taking this vaccine would prevent you from other people getting it, means you couldn't carry it and give it to other people. And now the rules are that you can't say that it does, because that was never a part of the clinical trials. They didn't test transmission. And so for a while, we couldn't even say that transmission wasn't tested. Now at least we can say that was never in the clinical trials. The only thing they tested for in the clinical trials was for symptoms, just like sneezing, coughing, fever. That was it. And that was something we literally couldn't say early in the pandemic.
Do you see the censorship coming back in some way? They'll start honing in on certain buzzwords again at some point in the near future?
Yeah, I do. I do think that how can they give up that kind of power? And it scares me. They, just in YouTube's quarterly, in Google's quarterly earnings, they said they took down 11,000 channels that were state run by Russia and China. And I have a question, because why can't I watch Russian state media if I want to? If it's clearly labeled, then I know that this is from the Russian government. Why can't I see that? I can choose for myself what to believe, right? I want to know. There are complete different narratives on the other side of the world, and it feels like a wall that I can't see it. I know that my own government is a liar. Why can't I see if other governments are too? I mean, I should be able to choose for myself. I really don't like the word disinformation or misinformation, because I should be able to see everything and choose for myself. I don't need curation. Censorship is not ever going to be freedom.
11,000 channels they took down, huh?
That's what they say. And, RT, Russian state media, thankfully in the United States, we still can go to their website, because I think they do good journalism. But yeah, they took down their YouTube channel, they say, and things that were connected to Russian state media, Chinese state media. But again, there are plenty of things I learn about from the Chinese government that for instance, I didn't know about Fort Detrick. It was the Chinese foreign spokesperson who said, hey, if the United States is really looking into the origin of COVID, why don't we get any real information out of Fort Detrick? There was a lab leak in the summer of 2019 out of Fort Detrick, and there was, in fact, a respiratory virus that went through that area in the summer. There are doctors who were on the local news saying, this is kind of weird. It's July. We don't usually get respiratory, viruses and outbreaks in July. That's kind of strange. I didn't know that until the Chinese foreign spokesperson talked about it. So, okay, why can't I see that? I'll choose for my damn self whether or not that's misinformation or not.
I always wonder, tell me what you think, is China, I know they're painting China as the enemy, and it's the whole thing, the bigger picture of all this, it appears that we're decoupling from China with some of the moves. And it makes me wonder, okay, is the Middle East, the goal is to get to Iran, maybe even have the people overthrow the government, to cut off the oil supply to China, to break, Ukraine, break Russia away from China. Is like the bigger picture of all of this. Is it to do a proxy, or, we wouldn't go directly to war with China, but to, isolate them and hurt them?
I think that that's a shifting target. I don't ever buy this China is the enemy, full stop. And I think that in the same way Russia, is nonsensically the enemy when Russia is not trying to invade us. We've had plenty of proxy wars with Russia. Most of those started, in their Soviet era. And I think that China requires a lot more nuanced look than our government is willing to give us. I think that absolutely it's appropriate to go to an economic war with China. Sure, right? But when they try and expand our military bases in the Pacific because of this military threat of China, that's where I hard stop there, full line in the sand. There's no scenario under which we would win a land war with China or any kind of island-based war with China, especially not over Taiwan. If the government of Taiwan has not taken a look at what our intentions are for them as a template from Ukraine, then I don't know, where are you looking, guys? This is, you want to be the next Ukraine? So those are the things. But I think that in terms of like whether China is just full stop our enemy, I don't think that that's something that you can really sell to the American people, no matter how hard they've tried. That's not to say that I want to, live in a communist society, that I think that, I was really encouraged when Donald Trump went to Saudi Arabia and gave his speech about a multipolar world and how we're done telling people in the Middle East how to live. We're done doing that. We're going to live and let live. Let's have multipolarity. You do you, we'll do us. Let's compete on the world stage economically. That seems, I just was really, that was what I wanted to hear from a world leader. That's what I've wanted to hear for decades. And I'm just really sad that will not be possible as long as we are enabling the war against the Palestinians.
So do you expect that to pick back up then, both for the Palestinians and then with Iran? Well, the Palestinians hasn't slowed down in Gaza, but Iran, do you expect that to move forward again?
I don't know. I don't know. I can't read the tea leaves. I know that Colonel Douglas McGregor, who's on our show a lot, absolutely thinks it will. And I just don't know, because it just didn't seem to matter that they have never had a nuclear weapon. It just really didn't seem to matter. And it makes me so sad that Israel has a nuclear weapon. Israel is still torturing the whistleblower who told us that in the 80s. If you don't know the story of Mordecai Vanunu, please look it up. He has been trying to seek asylum in other countries for decades, and no one will take him in order to avoid crossing Israel. So he is still stuck there, was in prison for 20 years for telling the world that Israel had nuclear weapons, some of which was stolen out of Pennsylvania, most of which, was hidden from JFK. In fact, he was very keen that Israel did not get a nuclear weapon. And one of his famous quotes was, every time he went looking to, for their, I think the story goes that they lied to the JFK administration and said, oh no, it's a textile factory. And it wasn't. I don't remember the name of the nuclear site offhand. And that JFK knew and told his closest advisors, these effers always lie to me. And so why can they have a nuclear weapon and they are absolutely the aggressors in Syria, in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Yemen, in Lebanon, right? So why them and not Iran, who has not attacked anybody? I just don't understand it, but it doesn't seem to matter. Only in the anti-war voices that I follow on X who care, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, even the comedian Rob Schneider, right? There's just a few of us willing to say it, but it doesn't matter because we're going to do it anyway.
Yeah, the whole Syria conversation. I don't know if you follow Kevork Almassian. If you don't,
oh yeah, he's on our show all the time.
Okay, yeah, he. You have JJ Carroll on your show all the time too. JJ, great guy. But Kevork just was on a couple of weeks ago, and talking to him, it's just like you just feel for the people in Syria. I mean, what do you do if you're them? Like, what their country is just, it's in utter chaos, and there's no sign of anything stabilizing over there.
There's a great book that gives me, I'm going to look up it's called Washington's Long War on Syria. That will give you the perspective of our perversion of government in Syria since the 60s. Bashar al-Assad's father, it might be the 70s, but I can't find the author at this time. But a great book about how we've just always lied about what happens there and always subverted their leadership. And it's awful. Yeah, it's awful.
I was shocked that Assad got overthrown this time because, that guy was always like cat. They couldn't get rid of him.
Yeah, I know. And I was in Egypt in 2023. On October 7th, we were in Egypt. So we were about 4 hours away from the border of Gaza because we were on the Sinai Peninsula. And when you talk to people there, they quite liked at the time Bashar al-Assad, but they knew that the United States would take him out if they had a choice because, of their allegiance to Israel. But they knew that Russia, they said Putin protects him. This was the kind of belief in that area that he was protected, and in their mind, justifiably, by President Putin. And then I just thought that was a stronghold that would hold. So yeah, I was quite surprised as well.
Well, and now the president, he had a $10 million bounty on his head by the United States, and they end up, they remove that, change his name, and he becomes corporate.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's unbelievable that now we're allied with, actually, I say that. It's unbelievable we're allied with ISIS, but it's not, because we funded al-Nusra to overthrow Bashar al-Assad. And so we were always aligned with ISIS. Al-Nusra is ISIS. It's just their sister company, just a different name. And so I guess it's not, right? We've always had ISIS on our wanted posters while giving them money.
Well, and that's a good thing, I think, with the positives of technology today, because coming back to the boomers, it was easy to suppress this information because you only had TV, local newspaper, and radio back then. So the ability to share information allows us to see more of what's going on. Although, who knows? Maybe none of this is going on, Natali, and this is all just one big psyop.
Mm-hmm. That's possible. Yeah, I was watching Glenn Greenwald yesterday, and he had, I can't remember the name of the person who was a famine expert, if that's a thing, and was talking about all the qualifications of what's happening in Gaza as an absolute famine and a war crime. And I was thinking to myself, is it possible that I'm worked up over nothing? It seems to me so obvious that we are starving people and allowing a military to fire artillery and machine guns into lines of starving people, which was exactly what we were told the Nazis did. And is it possible that is there any other way to see it? And I'm walking around this and thinking, how do I know anything for sure, right? And I otherwise don't know what to do. It's possible, and I watch these Zionists say the death numbers are inflated. Yes, we do it, but only a little bit. And also they're all Hamas, little baby girls, right? How do we know that whether or not we're being manipulated, but we are being asked to authenticate the most horrific reality without explanation. Yesterday the State Department said, well, we're not going to be a part of UNESCO anymore because they're anti-Israel. And, so there we go. And they allowed membership to the so-called state of Palestine. So we're done with them. But we're allowing Israel to not bring aid in. Israel started, if you haven't seen this, there's a great group called Breaking the Silence, which is a foundation of ex-Israeli military who talk about the things that they were made to do. And it's horrific. And a couple weeks ago, they released something called The Perimeter, which was a detailed report of how, when the war began in Gaza, they were told to go in with this massive bulldozer. It looks like it's straight out of the Hunger Games. And bulldoze agriculture, farms, livestock, and food factories. That's where they started in order to expand the perimeter. Basically, they were taking the strip of Gaza and moving in further. And it's grunt work. It's basically just construction work. It's like today there's a bread factory. We're bulldozing that with this big bulldozer. And that's what they did for months and months. And when, in fact, there were IDF soldier deaths, it was because they were imploding these places with mines that were made for underseas mines, right? So they're hurting themselves too. They clearly, it's just they don't actually care about their own soldiers if they're exposing them to, these are mines that are supposed to be exploded underwater. Like they're exposing their own people to, and then oops, a building falls. It's horrific. So this is why they don't have food. It's not because it's a backwater that otherwise couldn't take care of themselves. And so if the IDF soldiers are willing to say what they did, and and then now we see people starving, is there any other way to see this? I wish that I could, I don't know how otherwise to take it.
Yeah, and the people there, I can't believe, they've said the numbers. I don't know, what do they say, 40,000 or something? But I feel like it's been stuck on that number for a year plus. And I've heard 200,000. I can't believe anybody's still alive in that region.
Yeah, right. It's hard for us to really understand, right, what the scale of it is from the drone shots and all of that. And in fact, there was a professor out of, I believe, it was in Israel. I think it was Ben Gurion University, or it was an Israeli university just 2 weeks ago that put out a report saying we know of 300,000 missing Palestinians. And so this missing how? We don't know, right? And so absolutely it cannot be 40,000 deaths. It cannot be. And so when you think about who's the Egyptian comedian? I can't remember his name. Anyway, when you think about, it's a Bitcoin exchange, is for every one Israeli death now, we have, thousands of Palestinians from October 7th. And yet anytime you say, stop killing these people, the Zionist will yell, you don't care about October 7th, right? And so that's their talking point. Do you know what Hasbara is?
Hasbara. No.
It's Israeli propaganda, basically. And so it's a very coordinated type thing, is that they know that it looks bad on the world stage. And so they have to collectively figure out how to spin it. And then that becomes sort of this, internet propaganda. It is Hasbara. It's how they spin things to the world. So anytime you say this looks terrible, they're like, but October 7th, you didn't say enough about it October 7th, right? And so they're kind of at a loss as we watch this happen,
Do you think the sentiment in this country, in the United States, towards Israel is changing because of all this?
Yes.
You think people are waking up?
Don't you?
I do. I like to think that, because, we pay attention to a lot of this stuff, but a lot of people are so blissfully unaware. So I wonder just the sentiment of the United States, if it's the perceptions change because of what's going on.
I think so. If you look at the polls, especially, you see that, and if you look at what was the speech Tucker Carlson did recently with the Charlie Kirk's Association? These were young Republicans, and he was and he was speaking out against our political allegiance with Israel and our inability to criticize them. And this room full of young conservatives was cheering, which would have been unthinkable years ago. I mean, think of how it cost Pat Buchanan his job, and so, or at least, some of his political career was destroyed for being unwilling to support Israel. And so now we do see that a younger generation is legitimate about their desire to be America first. And, good on them for feeling that way. And so it does feel like, yeah, you're right. The boomers who supported the war in Iran on your Facebook are a shrinking generation. And when you look at the polls, Democrats, to their credit, really don't want to support this war, which is strange because they wanted the war in Ukraine so badly, but they don't want this. So it makes me wonder, do they just not want it because Trump's in office? Or are they somehow waking up like zombies to the fact that Democrats used to have an anti-war platform? I don't understand it, because they don't apply the same scrutiny to the war in Ukraine. It's just batshit. I'm sorry I said that word,
Oh, you
but
can
it
say
really
whatever.
is. Okay. It's just so batshit crazy that we support things based on these labels that we wear. We should be able to do better than that. You know, I know the war in Ukraine was based on a lie and was instituted by the United States State Department. I know this. And I know that the war in Gaza is based on a lie and is supported by lies by the United States. And in fact, Hamas was supported by our own tax dollars and our own government. I know this, and I don't care where that puts me on the side of the aisle. It doesn't matter. And until we can break those allegiances and be able to think not in terms of what our party wants us to think, but in terms of what we actually think logically, rationally, then, we're just going to keep doing this.
I'm smirking because when you said boomer, I just think of one of the comments on that post that I did, and they're like, "Had to be done, Mike. Had to be done. Had to drop those bombs. Destroy those facilities in Iran." But then also the flip side of it, you talk about Russia, because you have the people on the left that you can't let Putin take Europe. And I think to myself, again, I'm not the most intelligent guy, but why would Putin want Europe? Does he want to inherit all those illegals in all those countries? What is of value?
Europe, yeah. Don't get me started on Europe, because we lived in Portugal for 5 years. I've only been back a year. And no logical leader would want Europe. I'm sorry. The people of Europe are absolutely tortured by their own globalist government, and I feel horrific for them. And it became so clear to me that it was time to leave, because when you have such a strict government for your government, you have no decisions in your life. It's horrid. I feel the people of Europe are lovely, and they have no say in their lives. It's awful. Nobody would want that.
And what is of resources that are in Europe that Putin would need? I mean, what is Italy for the pasta?
Good point.
Like what is there?
Right.
Like why would you want that?
Right. And Europe has so many. I mean, I guess in this fantasy that Putin wants Europe, he would blow up these regulations. But even people in Portugal realize that, they used to have an abundance of agriculture until the European Union came in and said, well, you no longer grow wheat. That's going to be grown in Germany. You do this only. And now they have forced them to be dependent on foreign imports. And, Antonio Costa, when he was the Prime Minister of Portugal after the pandemic, he said, we are too dependent on foreign imports. And the pandemic taught us that. But nothing's changed. That he didn't do anything. He was voted out in a corruption scandal, and now he runs NATO. Is it NATO? Oh, no, he's in the European Commission. He failed up, just like Ursula von der Leyen, just like Mark Rutte. Everyone there fails up into leadership in Europe, because that's just the way it goes, and you have no real vote. Last week we covered Ursula von der Leyen released this €2 trillion budget, and it's full of bullshit, like more war, more funding, this, that, and the other. And how are they going to do it? They're going to tax you more. They're going to slap taxes on all different kinds of things. There's no Congress to push back on her. She wants it, she gets it. There you go. Now they're going to do crazy things like tax unrecycled electronics. What does that mean? Is like Natali has an iPhone, her husband has an iPhone, her kids have iPhones. If the government never sees those iPhones recycled, then the government of Portugal will pay €2 per kilo of electronics that we never saw come back. Well, how the hell do they know that? What if I sell it on Facebook? What if I give it to my mom? What if I give it to my daughter, right? And so they are now taxing things. Well, what's that going to give them is the right to track your devices. What's that going to, they're going to now have to track your consumption more often. This is more expense and less freedom for Europeans. They have no way to push back. None. Absolutely none. And what's that going to do is increase the price of their goods. So that is, again, a tax on the middle class. That's a big middle finger. Can't do anything about it. Congratulations, Europe. She wants it. She gets it. That's how it goes.
So basically, the people there they're fucked. Pardon my language, but
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, exactly that. Yep. Yeah. And I just feel terrible for them because, well, we bought a house in 2021 when we were living there, which is a whole adventurous thing. And the war in Ukraine hadn't broken out yet. And so we qualified for a mortgage, and they said, well, you can have a 0.6% interest rate, because the interest rate was effectively zero in Portugal. And that's an adjustable rate. But we haven't had war. We haven't had economic disruption in 20 years. Most people do this, flexible rate that it changes every year. Or you can lock it in at 1.8 or something like that. And we're like, well, 1.8 is still pretty cheap. We're Americans. We don't get that rate. So we're going to lock it in because you just never know, right? And they're like, okay, but Europe's at peace. We have prosperity. Are you sure you want to do that? And we're like, yeah, we're going to lock in that rate. And they said nobody does it. About 90% of borrowers get the adjustable rate. Well, then what happened? The war in Ukraine broke out. Europe went 2 feet in to completely sending all their money and weapons. In fact, they asked Portugal, can you send your fighter jets? And Portugal's like, we have 2. You cannot have our fighter jets. But they didn't stop them from perverting their economy to support a war based on a lie. And then interest rates quadrupled within a year. People were protesting in the streets because they couldn't afford their mortgage, which had quadrupled. Our banker was like, I can't believe you locked in that rate. Who would have seen this coming? It's not because we saw the war coming. It's just because we thought, we don't trust world governments to stay stable. That would be stupid. Let's lock in the rate. So yeah, our banker basically, gave us a standing ovation for having done that. But then you saw people on fixed salaries, doctors, lawyers, policemen, they couldn't afford their own mortgage. It was awful. It's awful, and it still is. It's starting to correct, but you cannot depend on a global government, especially not a liberal one like Portugal or like the European Union, to do right by their people. They hate their own people.
Well, and you tell that's a great story that you just shared, because you lock in a low rate, and the others that happen to do that, they're stuck because they can't sell, because they're not going to, why would you get out of the low rate and then go to a higher rate? So the whole real estate just froze then. Yeah.
Yeah. I know. It's really a sad situation, and I don't see, I mean, in terms of, they're taking on more military debt by taxing their own people and borrowing it. So that's only going to lead to more inflation. Nobody is seriously trying to help the European economy. And Ursula von der Leyen, in this 2 trillion euro budget that she sold, was like, well, it's Europe that will be making the weapons. We'll be making them, we'll be selling them. So that's going to boost our economy. And any asshole knows that you cannot boost your own economy with war funding and debt. They should look to the United States for a lesson in that, but they refuse. And it's the broken window fallacy. It's the idea that if I break a window, well, then, the glazier has to come. I don't know if that's a real job. I just made that up. The window maker, whatever, has to make the glass, has to install the glass. And, there's money in the economy because I broke that window. The fallacy of that is that money in the economy could have gone to building something new rather than repairing something old. That's not really economic progress. But idiots who are in power in the European Union and the United States, quite frankly, because the big, beautiful bill is chock full of military funding, that's more broken window fallacy.
Yeah, I want to ask you one more thing about Europe. Then if we can talk about the big, beautiful bill for a few minutes. But would you even travel to Europe right now on a vacation based upon all this?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one because my kids went to an international school and they really want to visit their friends. And yes, I mean, it's just a little scary. We have European residency. So we have at least we still do, some rights as residents, where maybe as tourists we wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, the world just gets scarier and scarier, and I don't want to live in fear of that, but yeah, I don't know. And it's hard to say. I mean, we went to the UK for vacation just a couple weeks ago, and you wonder, because journalists are held at borders all the time, and you just wonder. But I do think that these globalist governments don't want the heat for, like, they want to operate under the radar, arresting people in pubs and that kind of thing. I don't think they want, sort of publicity of arresting, but who knows? I don't know. Yeah, I can't give you a good answer on that.
I saw you guys, you had an opportunity to meet with Neil Oliver. He's fantastic too.
Yes. Yeah, that was really exciting for us.
Did you have any issues while you're over there?
No, I'm going to knock on wood. No, we didn't. And in fact, we met people who watch our show there, and that was encouraging. And, we had just met Neil Oliver for the first time, and he was recognized in a pub. There are people who very much want to push back against the establishment there who, are and I think that, when we were in Portugal, it felt a little bit hypocritical, saying, well, the United States is doing this and this, and we were fighting from the outside. It felt like we need to stand up for our home country from within. And it feels comforting to do that. But, I do think that, he calls himself the most canceled man in Britain because he's lost so many TV contracts and, speaking gigs and alliances from just being unwilling to repeat narratives. And I think he's so heroic. But I also think that in a small sense, that might feel like that in your world. I've lost plenty of friends for my worldview, for my refusal to align myself with the left, especially because I'm a Californian by birth. But it feels really good to have a community of people who are like-minded. So, yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
I find myself, is it harder? This is challenges that I have, just the personal relationships I have here. It doesn't help I go to yoga, which is a very extremely left-leaning, mostly group of people. Mm-hmm. I also love to trail run too, and that's a lot of, not all, but a lot of left-leaning. And I have a hard time, like the people that are just so blissfully unaware. It's hard to talk to them because, I can talk about top-level things, sports and movies and whatever, but they're not I find people, they're just not interested in discussing some of this.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I try to, in my real life, not discuss politics very often because I don't want it to affect my children and their relationships. That's happened before, where people found our YouTube channel and told my son that his parents were extremists or what have you. So I cursed that kid, that's how I dealt with that. I'm just kidding.
Just locked him in the shed.
I mean, no, just like cursed him with perpetual jock itch.
Oh.
It was an energetic curse. I'm just kidding. No, it did cross my mind. You come from my kids, and I'm going to go below the belt. So even though this was a fellow child.
What's the most important story to you right now in like where you're thinking domestically? Is it Obama and Russiagate, Epstein? Before you answer that, I heard you guys talking about the Superman movie. I watched that a couple days ago because I saw it a couple of weeks ago when it came out, which was okay.
Did you also see Roger Waters?
Roger Waters from Pink Floyd?
No. Yeah.
No, what'd he do? I've seen him in concert.
Okay. Clayton and I both saw it. He is one of the not Israel soldiers in that final battle scene. And they pause on him. And you're like, why is this old man a part of this military? It's clear to me that that's Roger Waters.
Wait, I'm sorry. Wait. I'm confused. He was in the movie?
I think he was. And I can't find anything online about it, which makes me wonder if they scrub it. But I'm fairly certain in the battle scene is Roger Waters. And you can't find any corroborating evidence of that online. But if you watch the final scene, I'm fairly sure that there's a pause on Roger Waters.
And now I got to go back and see. I don't really want to pay to go
You
watch
got to
that.
go back and see it. Yeah, because I've been looking it up. There's no reference to it in the IMDb. There's no talk about it online. But I know Clayton and I had 4 kids in between us because we have 3 and my son brought a friend. And we were looking at each other. Like when that happened, we both sat up and we went, Roger Waters, did you see that? We both saw it independently, 4 kids in between us. And you can't find any corroborating. But I think that is the Easter egg that is telling us that this is an anti-genocide movie. So, yeah, I don't know. Okay, somebody tell me I'm not crazy that you also saw Roger Waters in the battle scene.
So at the very end of the when the kid like holding the flag of Superman.
Yeah, he's one of the militant army, not the grassroots army. He's the organized. He's one of the organized army cavalry.
Was there any dialogue?
No.
Because I feel like that would be in
Yeah,
it.
okay.
But that's kind of. But here's the thing with that.
Right?
Like that's kind of ballsy because Hollywood and Israel. Like, I wouldn't think that James Gunn would be able to get away with that if he did that. If that was.
That's what I thought. But why? Like, why am I the only one who saw it? I feel like I'm in an alternate reality where it's not being discussed, but Clayton and I saw it.
Now I got to go back and watch it. I did feel though when the kids the way they were portraying that, I'm like, God, are they doing Gaza here?
Yeah.
But then I think to myself,
Right?
I'm like what you just said. Maybe I'm in an alternate reality, and because there's so much, you're looking at this all day long.
Yeah.
That you become a skeptic of maybe the movie was just meant to entertain you, and I shouldn't be reading too far into it.
Yeah, I'm just saying that it's like 10 years ago, we were driving in Scotland, and I swear that I saw the Loch Ness Monster, and I do not want that debunked in my life. Like, I got to go to my grave thinking I saw the Loch Ness Monster. I have no proof. It's just something, that's one of those things where please don't tell me that Roger Waters was not in that battle scene. I need that to be true. I'm here presenting myself on your show as like an impartial journalist who's willing to see the truth, but please don't break those things for me.
I've seen him in concert twice, and have you ever seen him?
Me too.
Oh, you have?
Yeah. Not twice, once. Yeah. Amazing. I think it was the Wall tour. No, is that what they called it? The Wall tour?
I saw that one. Was that
wall?
09? Yeah. That was, I think that was 09.
No, it was 2012. And I remember because
Maybe it was 2012.
I was still nursing my daughter at the time who was born in 2012. And I was like, man, I'm going to get contact high in my breast milk because this place is full of weed. Yeah. I wonder if the baby's going to get stoned from me breathing all this in.
That was 2012. Okay, so that was 2012. 'Cause I saw him here, and then I saw him like in 2003 in Pittsburgh, where he did like a medley of Pink Floyd stuff and some of his solo.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And then I saw Pink Floyd. The last time they toured as Pink Floyd was 1994. I was a sophomore in high school, and they came to the Cleveland Stadium. I won the tickets on the radio because I didn't have $30. And the usher was so high that he let us onto the field for because it's an outdoor stadium in May. So I saw Pink Floyd. Roger Waters was with him, but David Gilmour and Rick Wright and Nick Mason. Yeah, I love Pink Floyd. I could talk about Pink Floyd all day long.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. Well, you need to report back to me if you go see it again. I mean, my son will buy it in short order, and I will find out for myself. But I'm pretty sure that that's what either that, because Clayton also thinks he saw the Loch Ness Monster, so maybe the both of us are in this alternate reality about these things, which maybe I'm not selling you on watching Redacted because you think those people are crazy.
No.
They think they saw the Loch Ness Monster. But yes, in those things I will tell you that I'm committed to my own reality there, but mostly I am an independent journalist who's committed to the truth.
Well, now you make me want to go back and watch it. Did you like the movie overall though?
I did. Yeah, I did like it. Yeah, Superman means a lot to my son, and so it's not one of those things. I'm grateful for when there's not a lot of subversive messages, and I think that movie doesn't have a lot of that. It's a pretty down the line, and there are some good lessons I think there in terms of like character and morality and things like that, you could do much worse for a lot of the media that's aimed at my teenagers.
Yeah, I was entertained by it. I didn't hate it.
Yeah.
I didn't love it. I put it on X after I saw it. I was like, maybe these movies just aren't made for me. I'm too old or something. Because I remember the Gene Hackman, the Christopher Reeve, and young people probably, I don't know. Do your kids, would they watch those or would they be bored with them?
Oh no, they love them.
The originals too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, in fact, this is a fun story. And I will have to wrap up in a bit because we have our live show. But when I gave birth to my son, in the delivery room in New York City was a Superman marathon, I think, on TBS. And my husband, he loves comic books and he loves Superman so much that he was like, I would have planned this on purpose. Like, we're going to have the baby to a Superman marathon. And when I was in active labor was the scene where they're fighting with Zod and they're blowing newspapers and buses around. And I was like, can you mute this? It's a little distracting. So my son really loves the story that he was born to Superman 2 and especially the battle scene. It's so silly.
Well, it's like that to me is still the best Superman movie. I like the Richard Pryor one because I was a little kid and, watching Richard Pryor from the toy, like having Superman fly him around. So it's hard for me to watch it now, but it wasn't that long ago I watched the original too.
Yeah, it was great. Great.
Last question. Maybe
and
we'll come
also
back.
My son is obsessed with John Williams as well. So, any like soundtrack type thing, he loves. So yeah, it was great that they used some of the original music as well.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. He did the musical score for the original.
Yeah, and I think they used some of it. My son saw him at the Los Angeles Philharmonic recently, but he doesn't conduct anymore. But I think they sort of used some of it in the new movie as well.
Okay, he's got to be, what is he, in his 90s? He's got to be up there.
I think he's 93, something like that, yeah.
Well, they just celebrated the 50-year anniversary of Jaws.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of the fact that he's still, so he was there, but he just, 93, that's old.
Yeah, I think they brought him up on stage, but mostly it's Alexander Dudamel who does most of the conducting, but he doesn't actually do it anymore. But, he's there like in the front row and then waves a bit. So I think he gave he was conducting as recently as a year and a half ago. So he's had quite a long career.
Yeah, he did every Star Wars, every Steven Spielberg movie.
Harry Potter, yeah.
Harry Potter. Oh, yeah, he did Harry Potter, too. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you going to go see Fantastic Four then?
Probably not. I think I can get out of that now that my husband has a 15-year-old to take.
Where can people, have to come back and we'll talk more about the world and the state of the United States. Ran out of time, but that's okay. Where can people find you?
You can find Redacted on Rumble, on YouTube. You can find me on X. It's just Natalie Morris, no E on Natalie. And and we have a daily newsletter that I write in order to be an accompaniment to the show, and it's totally free. There's nothing behind a paywall or anything, and you can find that at redacted.inc. And then a lot of times that's sort of how I prep for the show, is writing the newsletter. So then, and I really want people to have access to original source material. I try not to link stories to like an NBC coverage if I can avoid that. And so that's where people can find sort of, and you don't have to agree with us when you come to Redacted, but I want you to have your own source material so you can study it up for yourself. So, we're really committed to that. So thank you for having me on.
Is there somebody on your show that you haven't ever spoken with that you would love to? Like a separate list of somebody?
What do you mean? Like someone I'd like to interview?
Yeah, like a
on
guest.
The show?
Yeah, a guest.
We have lots. Let's see. Who would I really like to talk to? Well, a lot of times, some of the people that we want to talk to, they have these exclusive contracts with either Fox or OAN or, MSNBC, so they won't do other independent media. But a lot of the people that, like, we do get to talk to Ron Paul quite a bit, Rand Paul. The more independent thinkers, we're glad to talk to those people. I'd have to think about that. I'd have to think about that. Some people, do seem a little out of reach. Well, I'm not sure. No, I'll think about it.
You can tell me the next time. Natali, thank you so much for doing
Okay.
this. I appreciate it. Thank you for everything you guys do on Redacted. And I look forward to continuing to follow your work, watching your show, and more conversations ahead.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mic drop.